Thank you for clicking in, and I'm your host, Laura Sikorski of Sikorski's Thinkabouts. My goal is for my guests and I to share our expertise that will help you provide outstanding customer service and experiences to your customers using people, processes, and technology. Today our guest is Mike Conti, and Mike you may remember from a show way back when in September where we talked about cloud and a lot of different other things, and we've asked Mike to come back and
Thanks
talk.
for having me back.
Appreciate it. We're going to talk a little about computer telephony integration, and we're not going to get too technical, so don't worry and start clicking out.
Right.
But a little bit about Mike. Mike has had various roles since 1990 in the call and contact center technology companies. His focus, though, has always been on business applications and technologies relating to the call center, meeting the business challenges, employee productivity. He looks at it from the operations side, and he also focuses on that infamous ROI.
Right.
So if you're going to spend the bucks, guys, you have to have a return on the investment.
Yeah.
And my quote on LinkedIn recommendation that I did for Mike is, you never will be sorry having Mike Conti in your corner for a technology implementation.
Right.
So with that, the importance of CTI, how can it enhance your productivity and your customer experience? And I went article writing days, and I had written an article in 1996, and it really kind of ties in with what we're speaking about today.
Sure.
And it said, one of the quotes I used was, and it was my quote I should say, the primary reason for installing CTI should not be to reduce staff, but rather to quickly gather customer information and enable the callers to choose what they want to do.
Right.
And we can also add when they want to do it. So with that, it's all yours, Mike.
So interesting about the article, I looked through it this morning and I noticed the prices that you quoted in there from 1996. So I'm very, very glad to see that the prices have come down considerably on computer telephony integration. We'll certainly talk about that, about why.
Right,
you know,
yeah. By the way, it was $100,000.
It was more, because that was just one piece of it. It was $100,000.
Right.
I remember probably selling, some applications that were in the $500,000 range just to create a toolkit for a CTI software phone at the time to do simple screen pop. So, real quick, I know we've got a definition up here, but I mean, computer telephony is just that. It's integrating your computers or your host systems and your client server systems with your telephony platform. Telephony platform being your phone system, your automatic call distributor, telephony being the most used channel for your customers today. But now you see this convergence because the computer is running your chat, your email, your SMS, and your instant messaging for your customers today. So back when we were doing this, in 1996, when you put that out, probably screen pop and customer routing was probably two of the first applications.
That was it. That was all that was available.
Now you've got applications that absolutely have to have this computer telephony integration in your environment to really bridge the gap between how your customers want to connect with you, right? So that becomes really the key.
So let's really kind of wind down and talk about, not wind down, but really kind of drill down into the typical applications.
Sure.
Okay, a lot of times people think, well, it's going to be too much of a big deal. It's going to be too involved in a project.
Right. So, well, the first thing, if you look at your typical applications, I've broken it out for a couple of different perspectives, one being the desktop and then one being the server host. So if you look at the desktop application, you're always going to have that screen sync, CTI screen pop, computer telephony screen pop, which is that simple. When a caller calls in, I'm going to match their caller number identification, their phone number with a database match, and maybe I'll use that to present the customer's information on the screen. And we'll talk about CRM, customer relationship management software. Or I'm going to have them put their information in. I'm going to say, who are you? Can you enter your account number or your social security number? So that way I can identify who the caller is. So at the base level, you've got CTI screen pop. So when the customer arrives at the agent, and whether that be a chat session or a voice call or an email, I can present that information to the agent on the screen. A couple of other applications is outbound dialing. So if I want to create a campaign, I'm going to take a bunch of caller lists and I'm going to push that information into what I call a campaign, and then I'm going to do outbound dialing into the agent population. And I'm going to do things with computer integration such as do not call list. I'm going to check a do not call list in real time through a telephony interface or through a web interface and make sure I'm not calling people who aren't called, who shouldn't be called.
And just as well is to be sure you're not calling a cell phone if the caller has not given you the okay to call the cell phone, because that would be a fine, right?
Okay, absolutely. The last one of those areas that you see a lot is the telephony control or phone control. So I may be using my CRM desktop or whatever I'm using, maybe it's a help desk system, a ticketing system, or it's an email platform or some sort of unified communications platform, which is the new thing now, so that I don't have to go to my phone every time I want to do something. So what I'll have is telephony control built right into my desktop. So if you could think about take a call, make a call, dial a call, conference a call, maybe put some sort of codes in for the call, and I'll see that as a presentation as part of my desktop.
So you're clicking in to your phone instead of having to, on your desk, punch in the numbers.
Constantly going back and forth to the phone. I'm going to be looking at one desktop for all of my functionality. So it keeps
and those seconds are valuable.
Very valuable. I mean, a couple of seconds per call for an agent can change the amount of calls that an agent can take per day.
That's true.
It can also change the experience. So if I know that Laura is calling in, she's just entered her digits, or I've done a match on a database to know that it's you on the phone, I can save a lot of time. Instead of making you go through a bunch of validation stuff, I can maybe go to a simple validation and say, oh, Laura, thanks for calling back.
I have heard that CTI can reduce 26 seconds off a call.
I think you can, the statistics are, it could be as small as 5 to 10 seconds or as much as 25 seconds or 26 seconds. It really depends on the process you're using today, how valid your data is, and how easy it is to validate the customer, and the environment. So, there might be other environments that might be stricter. Financial services, insurance, healthcare may have stricter policies on how many elements you want to validate your customers on. If I'm only going to validate on one, no problem. If I'm using multiple, points to validate the customer on, it may take a little bit longer. So that's why usually I give a range of 12 to 20 seconds per call.
And you can also, with CTI, can't you do the algorithms where you could say, oh, the identification of this caller, he owes us money. Let's not, send him to the agent. Let's send him over to finance to collect on that
Absolutely,
balance too.
I've heard a bunch of companies utilizing that feature where they call in for customer service. Maybe their service is turned off. They can't access it. And then you check the database real quick, and I think we have that here for the server host. That's where we're talking about advanced call reporting, advanced call routing. So we're looking in a database. And so on the flip side of that, you're showing a collection situation. Caller calls in, they want customer service because their service is turned off, but we recognize that they're in a collection situation. Let's send them to collections rather than customer service. Let's do it the alternative way where the caller calls in and maybe they're a high value customer. And I want to check a database to see that this customer not only is a high value, I want to give them a higher priority to route into my call center, but maybe I want to check the agent who handled them last to send their call to the agent that had maybe a little bit of experience. Maybe it's the agent they spoke to last week. Maybe it's the agent that they talked to a month ago, but maybe create some consistency with my customers and my agents to further build relationships.
So it's all that relationship. It's all, it's that customer experience. It's that warm and fuzzy.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
CTI, don't be afraid of it. I'm going to say that several times during this because it is a fabulous, fabulous way to help your customers.
And when we talk about, call routing, there's things you could do where if customers are calling and you notice that, you talked about algorithms before, but if they're calling in every, month on the same day and really all they're doing is checking a balance, then maybe what you could do is identify them as that caller, ask them if they want their balance right up front. If you've identified who they're calling in, and play their balance right away. So now you've just made them, a little bit easier. You've cut the call duration. You've improved the experience because you're giving them what they want up front.
use your dialer, use your outbound dialer and say, okay, we call this customer every Monday at 10 o'clock because that's what they're doing to us. Let's be proactive. You know, and
absolutely.
again, today that whole concept in our industry is to be proactive.
That's right.
With the customers.
Even, and lastly, you know, the first time I was here, we talked a little bit about IVR, you know, pressing this, pressing 1 for this, pressing 2 for this. If you know who's calling you, you could change the dynamics of the menu that you're giving them. So you could perhaps give them a customized menu so that they don't, you know, have the same menu over and over again. It may be customized per client or something
and
like that.
And it's truly, I believe, very, very important that, you know, we need to think like a customer when you're starting to do any type of CTI application, and you know, go from there.
Absolutely.
But don't make it complicated. You know.
Absolutely. So one of the other terms that we talked about was customer relationship management. You see this in a couple of different areas. So CRM is an industry all in itself. They provide all of the customer information. So whether you're looking at, you know, marketing information for a customer, you're looking at demographic, Salesforce automation, where you're tracking, you know, the inbound and outbound sales activities as well as the overall process of how your salespeople are interacting with your customers. Customer service technologies, so that if you're in whether it be a utility or a retail business, you can track the buying cycles and the last people who handled your customers, and then even to a help desk, where not only you're doing a ticketing system where you're opening up a ticket when a customer calls, but you're doing what we call case management and going back and forth with the customers to provide information on that ticket. So let's just say it's a technical call and maybe there's a lot of troubleshooting that needs to go back. We want that communication, you know, consistent. We want that collected and presented back to customers. And you can even go further to simply, you know, providing information to the customer like their last order status. So if they're calling you back after they just placed an order, maybe you could say, hey, if you're calling, you know, proactively, if you're calling about this order, 1, 2, 3, 4, it's going to be there tomorrow. You know, and again, just saving your customers time and you know, building that a good customer experience, which is ultimately, if you're in a sales environment, it's going to increase your loyalty, you know, your customer loyalty, make them keep coming back.
And it's, you know, it's that whole concept lately of front office, back office integration, and that again, it goes back to CTI, but it's following the life cycle of what that caller is expecting you to do for them.
That's right.
And then make sure that you deliver it, and you can deliver it. Yes, it would probably be nice to not have an automated call back that your order is great. Maybe it's, you know, it routes to the agent and the agent calls you back and, hi, we spoke yesterday. And so it's again that familiar working with that particular customer service agent.
Right, and so now a lot of the stuff we've talked about is where you know who your customer is calling you. A lot of times in sales environments, you may not know who your customers are. So there's companies out there, I just was talking with a company last week called NextCaller, and what they do is as an inbound caller calls in for a sales environment where we don't have a relationship, they provide a connection to their real-time database where you can actually get all of the information of a particular customer and then populate your own database with that information. So for instance,
where's the privacy though? That's a little scary.
Well, there's a lot of different information sources out there, and it's all done, you know, respectfully, but there's a lot of information about, you know, demographic information, you know, where they are, who they are, and that information is what do you say, is brought together. They've got the engine that'll pull it from all those different sources. So instead of you having to have 5 different spiders, if you will, that go out there and bring it back, they'll do it for you. So it's a web call. Call comes in, I can then do a match to their database if I don't have any information, and pay per hit, and then bring all that information back for a customer. And now I can treat the customer a little bit differently, and differently.
Not
maybe
frighten
better,
them, but
maybe better. Maybe I can articulate certain sales to them. Maybe I could articulate certain values to them on products and services, and find out if they do or don't have certain services. So there's a lot of things you can do with these. With
and
this
it just,
information.
you know, as we're talking, it is just such a great way for customers to reach out to their reach out to their end consumer out there who has never talked to them before. And I think it also may have applications, for the companies that are greeters,
right.
At like a Walmart or
sure.
a Walgreens greeter, that they say, okay, maybe there's something that visually can happen. I mean, I don't want to take us into really Star Trek-y kind of things, but CTI is the beginning of that.
Well, I mean, you have this convergence of channels. I've heard people use the term omni-channel now, and you talk about the greeter in the store. Omni-channel looks at everything. It looks at the brick and mortar store. It looks at the portal on the web. It looks at every type, the mobile device.
Right.
It's looking at every type of interaction a company or a customer can have with you as a company. So you really have to be aware of how your customers are coming in, and tying in your computer, tying in your telephony system with your computer system and your host system and your customer relationship is ultra important these days. It's the only way to get that 360-degree view of your customer, to really know where they're coming in, how they're interacting with you, and how best you can service them.
Totally agree. So, how does CTI we talked a little bit about improving the customer experience.
Right.
If you had to tell our guests why they really needed to do this, what is the one value that you see?
It's the one application, I think, that's going to increase your agent productivity and improve the customer experience at the same time. So you get two bangs for the buck, if you will.
Right.
You're gonna make your agents that much more efficient, and you're gonna give a better experience to your customer. If it's done right and properly, you're gonna get those two very critical factors that you're always trying to strive for, which is good customer experience and good and increase the agent productivity. You're gonna get that when you look at these applications, right? Because it all is about enabling your agents or customer service representative or whatever they may be with better information, with faster information, and then empower them with that information to ultimately improve the experience for your customers, which I think has a downward kind of value.
And I think it also is very important for you it kind of forces you, if you're beginning this process, to really take a look at all your applications. Are they doing what they're supposed to be doing, or are they not really satisfying what your agents need, even if you didn't have CTI?
Right.
I think this is what it gives you, the ability to do. What's the best way to evaluate and be ready?
Well, so the first thing you want to do from a technology perspective, you want to be utilizing standards. So if you have technology today that are not using standards to interface these environments, you may want to look for some middleware that'll do those standards for you. That'll kind of
give
normalize.
A definition of middleware.
A middleware will take a company's proprietary interfaces and make them standard interfaces, right? So CTI middleware, not used as much today because a lot of the systems have open interfaces and open APIs, and you're using web services to do a lot of these things. However, your lowest cost to entry on CTI applications is going to be the more standard you use. So if you can get away from middleware and use the inherent connectivity and open interfaces that your provider already provides, it's going to be that much better to make it
it's going to be easier to
The other thing is that as you start building these open interfaces, I can reuse the code. So if they're open interfaces, whatever I use for the IVR, I may be able to use for my website, and whatever I use for the website, I may be able to use for my survey tool or for my outbound tool. So it's really about reusing this code, if you will, to not be recreating the wheel.
And it's almost like, keep it simple, and the better off we all are going to be.
Absolutely. So I think that's really the best thing, and really to look for, which was going to give you the best bang for the buck as far as your return on investment, right? So which one is going to help you do that?
So this may be we have a Twitter question, and this may be something we've already talked about, but maybe it requires a redefinition or a rediscussion. How do I identify the best CTI application to start with?
No, I think we talked a little bit about it, but I think we can go a little further on it to say that you really need to see how your customers are interacting with your business, right? And then find out the systems you have in place and figure out what you can do. I always, when I'm with customers, I always find that there may be 10 different items that all have different ROI points on which is the best one to do. However, some are always going to be challenges with the different with the different technologies that I have in place. So I want to contrast what's going to get me the best change to my customer experience with what I can change very easily in cost.
Right.
So the simplest one, if you're not doing screen pop today, typically becomes the quickest hit that you can make a change to your environment and make those changes very quickly. And then you can, once that's in place, you can start maybe looking at some of these other advanced applications, advanced routing, advanced outbound surveys, and that type of stuff. So so it's look for the simplest one first, and then build off of that.
And build. I mean, and that's always, I think it's always either the quick hit, the easier, the quicker you can get satisfaction from implementing a complicated CTI, where your end run is going to be some of the stuff we talked about already.
And as with always, when we talk about this, even the last time, you know, don't roll it out in mass. You know, try to do some focus groups. Try to figure out. You know, don't shock your customers with a big change to their environment. You don't want to. You know, change is bad. But if you do it slowly, you can make it.
Right,
you
and
can make it much more appealing.
Don't make it the type of what we all hate. You know, we say press 1 for this and please enter your account number. We do all that stuff, and then by the time we get to the agent asks us, "May I have your account number?"
Exactly.
So that's CTI done wrong, folks.
Right.
So with that, believe it or not, we are just about out of time, and I do want to thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you.
You know, we will have Mike back periodically because I think technology is extremely important, and plus he's a nice guy.
Thank you.
So I do want to you know, just kind of give you some of Mike's information. He is a contact center technologist, and he can be reached at Twitter for a direct message, Michael Conti 411, or he has a profile on LinkedIn. And I believe you're seeing it now on your screens at home and in your offices. And you do cell as 317-715-8591. If you'd like to reach me to be a guest or suggest a program topic, at Laura Sikorski on Twitter. And of course, we always want to thank the Daily Blue and Blue Chip Marketing for hosting our show, Sikorski's Thinkabouts, and you can reach them at the Daily Blue. So one more thing, I'm going to always try to end with a quote. And today our quote is from Richard Branson, and it's as follows: "Good customer service begins at the top. If your senior people don't get it, even the strongest links further down the line can become compromised." And with that, I want to thank you all for clicking in. Stay safe, and until next time, have a great day.